everyone, and welcome to the big interview. I'm Kel.
I'm Lisa.
And we are joined today by the incredible Laura-Rose Thorogood, who is the owner of the LGBT Mummies tribe. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Do you know what? It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to speak to powerful and interesting women.
Thanks. I'll take it.
Why not? So for our viewers and for anyone that might not be familiar with your website and what you do, tell us a little bit about LGBT Mummies Tribe.
Okay, so we are an organisation that works to educate, share and celebrate LGBT plus women and people on the path to motherhood or parenthood. So we provide a global community for people to share their journeys, their experiences, to ask for guidance, hear lived experiences. And then we have private support groups. We have 12 support groups. And we hold a once a day UK event with mums, parents, babies, bumps, people looking to start a family. And we do a lot of policy and campaign work around LGBT plus family equality. So, yeah, that's what we do.
It's incredible. And how did this get started? Where did this come from?
Well, my wife and I have been together 14 years, married 10, when we started our journey to parenthood about a decade ago. And when we started, we just didn't know anyone. Everyone on the scene was out getting drunk, having fun, still partying, and we were getting really boring and old. And we were like, we're ready to start a family. And we just really struggled. We didn't know anyone else on the scene that was having children or had experience really, other than one local lady. And we just struggled. We were isolated. We had no one to ask questions. And then by the time we had our second child, my wife carried our first, I carried our second. We just were consistently getting stopped in the street through friends of friends through social media about how did you have the kids and how much did it cost and where did you go and all these questions. And it just became so obvious that there was just a need for an organisation to support women and people like us. So we were just like, we just need to do something. So it started off as an Instagram page, and then just over the last 3 years, it's blown up. You know, we registered as an organisation, attended Downing Street, worked with Stonewall, worked with all these amazing organisations because there's a need for women and people like us to have that level of support, to understand what your options are, what routes there are to have children. Like, you know, you both understand.
Yeah. There really, historically hasn't been any information out there, is there? You know, you stick it into Google and all you get is, maybe, the odd American couple talking about their IVF journey, and it's not comparable to what women in Britain and Europe go through really when they're looking for ways to start their families, is it?
Yeah, no, I don't think it is. But in terms of I know there's not a lot offered on the NHS, but when people go to their GP to maybe discuss it, do you find that things are getting better in terms of conversations that people are having with their doctors, or is there still a massive challenge there in terms of getting accurate information and support?
To be honest, when it comes to people going to their GP, you tend to find that most people's lived experiences, that most GPs don't have a clue. It's not within their remit. They don't understand or know what the local CCG, local clinical commissioning group, what their criteria is, or if there's any free funding. So they kind of either hit a wall and go, oh, I don't know, you'll have to look it up, or I'll have to find out. Or people will come to us and say, is it available in our trust? And obviously each trust has a CCG and they get the budget. So they each autonomously work and they have a budget, and then they decide how that art review budget's used. So they can say yes or no, but it's not just the same for us. It's the same for heterosexuals too. Yeah. But for us, obviously, if you're heterosexual, you have to try, shake hands for 2 years to get pregnant. And if you have a problem, go back to GP and say, we can't get pregnant. With us, some trusts won't give it to you at all. There's no funding. Others have a real criteria under a certain age, under a certain BMI. You've got to meet all this criteria fertility-wise, or you have to try 6 private attempts or a cycle of IVF before we'll even consider you. And then you still need to meet the criteria, and then you need to wait. So there's a lot of barriers for our community, obviously, accessing funding.
Yeah, huge barriers. You know, I remember being told, go off and try. Like, well, I don't think you're quite understanding the science here and what it is I'm trying to talk to you about. So we get fobbed off, don't we?
Yeah.
So what progress are you making with regards to stopping us being fobbed off in the GP surgeries?
We are directly working now with the NHS. So I'm on the Stakeholder Council for the Maternity Transformation Programme for Better Births. So that's basically the council that's involved in the Better Births programme to improve maternity care, pregnancy and birth for women and people in the UK. We've also met with the Government Equalities Office last year with like a list as long as my arm of demands, of recommendations in a more positive term, of areas of healthcare that our community are just not supported in, one being fertility equality. To be honest, I don't know whether we'll get that. It's a real long shot because the NHS hasn't got a big pot of gold. You know, they're struggling financially. And a lot of CCGs are stopping funding, not just for us, but for heterosexuals. So I could see in 10 years' time, prophetically, that there wouldn't be funding for many people, if anyone. But it's something that we're pushing for, that if heterosexuals can try for 2 years, there needs to be a bit more of an equal playing field for us, because they don't have to pay for that privilege of doing what they're doing at home. We do. So there's so many areas that are so disparate for our community that are just not even considered, but they are listening and they are taking note and they really are passionate about making a change, but it just takes time.
And the frustration is that inconsistency across the country, isn't it? You know, if the same rules were applied to everybody, then at least you could work with that. But, you know, it's very difficult to affect change when it's, you know, so different across the board.
Do you find that that's what most people come to you for support with, is the conception journey, or is it more sort of parenting advice and help once they've got baby in arms?
It tends to be at the start of the journey of, we don't know what all our options are, what's actually accessible for us, how long it takes. We're kind of split between a few different paths, whether it be fertility treatment or a home AI, or if it's adoption or fostering. You know, there's so many different routes, but people don't really know what's accessible for them. So they come to us for that information, and then to hear other people's experiences. And that's the thing, like, you'll probably know, people probably come to you and say, well, how did you create your family? And they want to know and hear good and bad experiences so they can make that informed choice and decision. But then, of course, we've got our global community where there's people with kids that are like in their 20s, and you've got people that have just had babies, or people have just, you know, fostered. It's so mixed, but you do tend to get a lot of people that want to carry, whether it be them, their partner, if they're a co-parenting or poly family, someone wants to carry.
It's natural, isn't it, to want to have your own children, and we seem to get fobbed off as gay couples, and you know, pushed towards the adoption route, which works for a lot of people, and there are lots of children who need adopting, but we seem to get forced down that because it's too complicated for people to work out when they're professionals and they don't know how to advise us. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think a lot has changed in the 10 years since we obviously started our journey. We were really lucky. We used a clinic in London called CRGH, and they were at the forefront. They're very scientific, very medical. Everything's with a medical need, so it's not about financial gain. So we were lucky. They dealt with a lot of LGBT plus couples, so it was just second nature. So we were lucky, but there are a lot of people that come to us with really poor experiences where they're like, you know, we're filling out forms that say mother and father, or you know, I'm trans or I'm non-binary, and there's no box for me on this form. Like, this is really triggering. And yeah, it's really quite difficult. But a lot of clinics and a lot of the country are trying to work on that. But it you know, we're still 10, 20 years back really from where we should be. Where are the government with it at the moment? Because I can remember I'm on my kids' birth certificate as parent. You know, we couldn't have two mums at that point, and you know, are things like that changing? Is that getting better for us? That's not changing. The legislations haven't changed. Again, it's something on the list of recommendations. We did a NHS and government roundtable about a month ago about some of those recommendations that we were pushing for around forms, around data collection, because there isn't any across healthcare. I know we've got the census now, but
annoyingly, when we, I don't know if you noticed, when you did the census, it had, heterosexual, and then it had lesbian, and it had gay, and then it had bisexual, and then it had another box.
Yeah.
And it really wound me up, so I wrote an essay at the bottom, and I was like, other, that's so awful. You've spent all this money, all this time doing something so important, trying to get us all to get involved and, give all our details over. And it was a really long survey.
Yeah.
And you've got a box for other people. That's awful.
You've got
to do the work. Yeah, there should be enough boxes for intersex, non-binary, trans, gender fluid, queer. There's got to be, representation and visibility for all of us, and acceptance. And that's, there's still a long way to go, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, those statistics that we will get from the census will be useful, but they are incomplete. You're absolutely right, and I think that's a theme that runs through everything in terms of inclusive language, isn't it? I mean, with the NHS particularly, it's just not there yet, and actually any government body. There's such an awful lot of work to do there, and in order to be workable for our whole community, they need to put a bit of graft in.
Yeah, and it's got to be universal. So, with us, we always say women and people, because not everyone we support refer to themselves as women. They refer to themselves as people or parents. We always say mother or parent, because, you've got to ensure that everyone's supported and included. And by going gender neutral, you exclude some, but then by adding additional language on, you're including everyone. That's inclusive. That's inclusivity. Making sure that everyone's included, and that's so many different things that could be changed, like forms, like on maternity forms. When I sat down in my first appointment, crossed out father, wrote donor, put mother to / parent to. All these things that seem to be quick fixes aren't quick fixes, which you get because there's a lot of paperwork, but they're things that need to be changed so that people don't sit there in an appointment and go, oh, okay, I'm on a back foot already. No one understands me. No one, I'm not visible. And that's the problem. We're not visible in very many places, are we? Other than Pride Month, which is great, but unfortunately, they need to support us all year round, don't they?
Well, that's why it's so important that we've got organisations, such as you guys, that are working all year round, to make the world a better place for the whole community, and it's so important.
Yeah, really, really is. What route do you think is the most popular route to parenthood for the people that are part of your tribe?
Tends to be with someone carrying, so either home insemination or going down the clinic route. Tends to be. Fostering is very, very few and far between, unfortunately, and then adoption. So it is more so someone in, whether you're a single woman or person by choice or partnership, or if you're a co-parenting or a poly couple, that tends to be more so where people go for.
It's funny, isn't it, that people don't, trying to work out and find out where you stand with the law with regards to donor insemination and known donors and things like that. It's an absolute minefield. There doesn't seem to be one resource, well, obviously there is now, but there never seemed to be a resource we can go to and say, where do I legally stand if my friend donates some semen to me? It was never clear. Do you think that's changing?
Again, it's so disparate that you find it in pockets. So part of the government website, it's very, very vague. Again, there's a lot on our website, and we work with a law firm, Slates Healey's, who is an LGBT plus law firm, and they're trying to advocate more information being out there so that people actually are informed, because what's happening is, because people can't get NHS funding and because people can't always afford to go down the clinic route, which is cripplingly expensive, they want to go down the home insemination route, or they're forced down that route, unfortunately. And so, because in the UK you cannot order sperm from a sperm bank direct to your home anymore, it changed. The law changed previously, but you can in the US and other countries. You can't use an unknown donor at home. You have to use someone, friend, family member, or someone you've met through Pride Angel, co-parents, Facebook groups, etc. But what happens is that people aren't being informed of the legal ramifications of what happens if they don't go and get a solicitor. But some people can't afford a solicitor either. That can be expensive. So they'll get a friend involved, an agreement will get signed. It doesn't stand up in court. It's just an intended document, a document of intention, which if you go to court, it just shows intent. That's it. It's not has no legal standing. And then years down the line, if the donor can't have children or is on his own or wants involvement, he can do that. He can take you to court. He can have access to your child. And we've had people come to us in real pickles because they're in such distress and trauma because they're in those situations, or they've split and they're having to go to court and it's costing them tens of thousands because no one sat them down and said, this is the law, this is what your options are. Unfortunately limited, but this is how you're supported or not supported, and that's the problem. It's not supported with home insemination or anything outside of a clinic, which is, we feel it's really wrong because you're not giving those people of limited income access, and they should have access to the route they deserve and want, and that's wrong.
It's prohibitive, isn't it? It's almost the government saying, unless you've got a ton of money in the bank, then this probably isn't for you.
Exactly.
And that's never been the case. The working classes have been that, those that have populated the earth. And now, if you're super rich, it's very difficult to become a parent if you're in a same-sex relationship.
Exactly. And it's so difficult for people. I mean, the amount of people that come to us and they go, we've got no option. What else? And to have to say to someone, this is the guidance, this is the laws that protect you, don't. That's it. It's an awful feeling to have to tell someone, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do other than speak up and other than push for change.
But that's important too, if that's what you can do and you're doing it, then you're doing your best, aren't you? So moving on to something popular, I think what's really nice about your organisation is that the way it seems to feel like such a community, such a support network, where people are there supporting one another and becoming friends, becoming family through your sites and through your organisation. That must be absolutely incredible to see that organically grow and to feel like you've connected so many people.
Yeah, it is really nice. I mean, where we've had our UK meets before and we had about 130, 140 attend. And our first one to see people attend and say, oh, we want guidance to help us through. We want to start our family. And then they come to the next one and they've arrived with a baby and I've held that baby. It is the best feeling because you think, I've helped do that. We've done that. And to see families worldwide where we get message and they say, oh, because of you, we've met this other family who live locally near us in California. And we've met up with our kids, and our kids now know other kids with two mums or two mums and a dad. And it is really nice. It is nice to see. And we got a really nice message a while ago. There was a couple, they were struggling to get pregnant and their clinic weren't listening to them as such. So, had calls, emails, and went through, their ovulation windows. And in the end, I was like, you need to put your foot down. You need to take charge, make an informed choice. This is your decision, your journey. And we had that conversation, push for the date, push for your IUI on that day. And they did. And the day they did, they got pregnant.
Yeah.
And they've had their baby. And it's just a wonderful thing to know that you've helped in some way impact that baby or that family becoming. So, it is a good feeling.
Sometimes people just need to feel that there's someone in their corner advocating for them. Don't they? That's all they need is just that little push and feeling of support.
It just goes a long way, doesn't it? Just benefits are huge.
So what can we expect from the LGBT Mummies tribe this year then, in this crazy year coming out of this insane pandemic? What can we expect to see from you guys?
Well, we won't be hosting our UK event this year just because I'm 8 months pregnant, so I'm about to pop. I know, thank you. So it's going to be a bit difficult with baby, and also due to the fact with the virus and everything, we've personally lost family members, so we're just quite cautious about protecting people's safety, people attending an event with children or bumps, etc. It's not worth it. So unfortunately, we've had to push it back to next year, which is fine.
Sensible.
Yeah.
Just being sensible for other people. It's there, couldn't even comprehend if someone came and got ill. It just wouldn't feel right. But we've got a lot of work going on with the NHS, other organisations like Mummies. So we're working with them to, support through pregnancy, miscarriage and loss through the miscarriage campaign that they've got going on at the minute. We work with Philips Digital, so they have the Pregnancy Plus app and the Baby Plus app. So we help produce their LGBT guides for women and people like starting their journey and when they have their babies. And just working with the NHS and in multiple areas to get the changes we want pushed through in like loads of different departments, which is really good. So they're listening, and we know it will take time, but for us, growing the community is important, but the policy work is just as, if not more important, because that change has got to come. We can't just be a tick box or a box that's not even there, you know.
It's relentless, isn't it, trying to get real change made. It's hard work and it's ongoing, and it's not an overnight process. So thank you for working so hard on behalf of our community.
And you, thanks for having me.
So tell our viewers how they can find you.
So we have the longest name in the world. Apologies, I couldn't think of anything more original. www.thelgbtmummiestribe.com, or we're on Facebook, the LGBT Mummies Tribe X, because it was the only one available, and on Instagram, the _LGBT_mummies_tribe. We're not on Twitter. It's a bit of an angry place, so we steer clear. Especially with people's families, images and stuff like that, it's just not worth it. But that's where you can find us, and we have the private support groups. But if anyone wants any guidance or just wants to be listened to or wants to just speak to someone on the phone, email, whatever it is, they can reach out and join the global community, because like you said, it is a positive community. We don't tolerate hate or discrimination or nastiness. It gets stamped out. So it is a really nice community of people that want to make friends and grow their circles. So yeah.
It is. I've been clicking in and out of the Facebook group for some time, and it is a really, really lovely community. And I think you've built something really wonderful. And fair play to you. I think all the lobbying that you're doing at national level is just so important, and we are, as Kel said, very lucky to have you working away on our behalf. So thank you so much.
Thank you. No problem. And thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. We love speaking to, like I said, we love speaking to people like you who are really making a difference in our community, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope that we'll see you again, maybe at a Pride event that we hold, or at a conference of some sort. And we hope that we can continue to work together in the future for everybody.
Yeah, and you've got to let me know when your Pride goes on, because then we'll have to plaster it everywhere for you. Loads of people coming.
Well, we'll work together, and that's the way the Pride community works, isn't it? We all work together, and we forge these relationships, and we work for the better good of everybody.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. What it's all about.
Definitely.
Listen, Laura-Rose, good luck with baby.
Thank you.
I hope baby gives you some time to rest up and put your feet up before they decide to come along.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. The other two will not let that happen. So,
well, good luck with everything, and keep in touch. And we hope to speak to you very soon.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Later. Bye. Bye.